My name is Caitlin Nix, and the title of my presentation is The Effects and Uses of Emotionally Appealing Advertisement. Advertisements are something that everyone in America is exposed to. They come through in many different mediums: print, radio, movies, television, billboards, etc. This display of marketing has grown more and more invasive, but has always had the same subliminal undertones, specifically pertaining to emotional desires, as displayed in Maslow's hierarchy. McDonald stated that in 1958, Martin Mayer wrote that the advertising man's work subjects him every day to the worst kind of commercial, social, and physiological insecurity. We are all too familiar with advertisements like this. This kind of advertising deserves so much more attention in the realm of research, especially because the world of advertising has grown so large. It incorporates many other aspects of society. This can make it difficult to discern fact from fiction when exposed to them, especially when said advertisement comes from a reputable brand or figure. This hand-in-hand relationship between advertisements and those who endorse them can lead to unnecessary spending and coercive temptations, and possibly alter the viewer's perspective in general. Lear stated that during the last 200 years in the capital West and increasingly elsewhere, advertisements have acquired a powerful iconic significance, yet they have been more than static symbols. They have been both fabulous and didactic. They have evoked fantasies and pointed morals that have reconfigured ancient dreams of abundance to fit the modern world of goods. Lear's, like many others, noticed the dreamscape advertisements try to create in order to pressure one into purchasing their product or service. Because of this, I feel it is vital to be aware of the intrusiveness of advertisement and to understand the effects they have on everyday life. Majid said, since emotions shape consumers' behavior and decision making, anecdotal shreds of evidence suggest that emotional advertisement has become a strategic take to influence consumer behavior favorably in a diversified business world. Throughout this briefing, I will analyze certain studies pertaining to the effectiveness of advertisements and the emotional appeal they display that aligns with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. For this subject, I selected Maslow's hierarchy of needs to determine the importance of emotionally inducing advertisements. Maslow's hierarchy of needs details 5 tiers of human needs. From bottom, the most basic, important needs for survival, to the top, self-fulfillment. The list is as so. Physiological, safety, love and belongings, esteem, and self-actualization. One cannot reach the top of the pyramid without having the bottom tiers fulfilled first. Through this organization, we see the basic form of human fulfillment. These are needs that everyone strives for and are often taken advantage of by others. The bottom tier, physiological needs, addresses our need for food, water, warmth, and rest. These are the basic needs that we must have in order to survive. Emotionally appealing advertisements that are used to push things we require give a sense of urgency that we might not have had otherwise, persuading a purchase. Several things can apply to the hierarchy of needs, but I will be specifying on how advertisements display these needs through an emotionally appealing aspect, making it seem more necessary to purchase than otherwise. My research questions for this subject are: what is the purpose of advertisements and their use of emotional advertising? What influence does emotional advertising have in the business or political social media settings? And how can we measure the effects of these emotionally appealing ads? In a study researching the effects of emotional appeals in marketing, graduate students were examined based on their reaction to advertisements in 3 different areas. This study exposed the students to rational and emotional advertisements in different service industries. The study looked at experience services, ones that can be easily valued by oneself, like a hotel, and credence services, one that are a little bit difficult to evaluate, like surgery. A third test was done to study the intensity of the effects. The studies concluded that for credence services, rational advertising worked better than emotional, as credence services usually pertain a risky or uncommon purchase. They also concluded that when introduced to an experience service, emotional appeals were much more effective. When addressing levels of intensity, the study found that high intensity individuals were predisposed to being more affected than their low intensity counterparts. Overall, the emotionally appealing ads proved to always be successful, but more successful when applied to an experience service. The emotional appeal can apply to any tier of Maslow's hierarchy, as advertisements use emotions in a way to make the person feel as if they need the item or if it will fulfill them in a way that is not truly possible. Because the topic of persuasion and advertisement is so complex, many researchers are distraught on which theories to analyze. One study argues that in order to properly identify the use of emotions in advertising, coding verbal protocols for positive and negative effect can be studied. Hill stated that although cognitively based models have been used in the prediction of consumer behavior, they have been unable to completely explain the processes underlying advertising effects. This may be due in part to the fact that the failure to include the emotional variables in these models. If emotion is considered at all, it is usually operationalized as a simple effect measure that deals with only one emotional dimension, like or dislike. This perspective ignores the multidimensional nature of emotion, love, hate, joy, anger, disgust, etc. This study chose to focus on the effects of emotional advertising by measuring through emotional attitude scale for both the ad and the brand. For their research, they had 4 experimental sessions with 25 students. The students were required to watch parts of a movie that had not been yet released while being interrupted by rational and emotional advertisements. Their findings reported that in some cases, emotional and rational ads affected the viewer the same, while in other cases, the emotional advertising affected the viewers more than the rational advertisement did, either negatively or positively. A few cases show that the rational advertisement did elicit more of a response, but only when using an animation that the viewers particularly enjoyed. We know that ads can be persuasive, but do they have any effect on the social climate? Political advertisements are more available to the public than ever before and actively participate in persuasion tactics. A research study examined 59 separate experiments to identify the leveling of persuasion in politics. They would show their participants an ad for the 2016 candidates each week for 26 weeks and survey them afterwards. Kopic noticed that across social science fields, a common pattern has emerged. Persuasive attempts tend to produce small average effects. Our 59 experiments demonstrate this. A persistent worry is that these small average effects mask large and off-settling conditional effects. Although small, the actual measurement of persuasion is really hard to gauge. Another part of society that is heavily influenced by emotional advertising is social media. Most of us have been exposed to these communities, and they are bombarded with advertisements from brands and influencers alike. Facebook, specifically, is home to a plethora of residents across the world. This leads to information circling fast and heavily, influencing several different walks of life. In a paper analyzing Facebook, it studied how individuals interact with brands and brand-related content through emotional appeals. Mogaji said that the use of emotion is acknowledged by marketing researchers and practitioners as a tactic to increase the effectiveness of the advertisement because it affects the consumer's judgment. Because of this, the use of emotional appeal in communities like Facebook have grown over the years. Social media platforms give brands a unique opportunity to become closer with their customers, further encouraging individuals to trust said company. Mogashi also said that social media is transforming how consumers interact with brands and how brand-related content is created, distributed, and consumed. Brands interacting on the social media network have the opportunity to model public perceptions about their brands. In particular, because Facebook provides unique features to allow consumers to get involved with the brands, user-generated content represents a platform for their identified fans to interact with the brand and each other. In order to fully understand the effects of emotionally appealing ads, there must be an understanding for the impact our psyche has on buying behavior. In this study, young customers were analyzed to identify the persuading factors in purchasing an item. Sophie noted that Applebaum stated that impulsive buying is an outcome of promotional stimuli, and that buying items are not decided in advance in consumers' minds before a shopping trip. Impulse buying plays a vital role in the market of social media. Advertisements are conditioned to be entertaining enough to stimulate a response from the viewer. Sophie stated that rather, it would become a tiresome practice if all buying decisions entail the need for extensive effort. Furthermore, if all purchases were made customarily, then they would most often have the propensity to be boring. In order to avoid the mundaneness of rational advertising, emotional triggers are applied and have continued to be used due to its effectiveness. This study concluded that personality had a significant role in shaping the impulsive buying predispositions. Sophie also stated that furthermore, it is clear from the discriminant model results that emotional intelligence and stability has a greater credibility in determining the degree of impulsive buying tendencies, followed by openness to experience and other predictor variables. Although there is little information on this subject specifically, and the theories used to analyze it are speculated, these studies did show that emotional use in advertisements did affect the viewer, though the effects were varied. This is why we see so many of these emotional advertisements today. Some subjects are naturally predisposed to fall victim to emotional appeals due to their personality as well. It was also proven that emotional ads do get more reaction than rational ads, even if that reaction has a negative stimuli attached to it. This followed suit with advertisements on social media, having ads with emotional elements being shared at least twice as much as others. For politics, emotional ads showed little to no actual variation in polls after being shown. By knowing why ads are created in this way and the effect that they have over people, we're able to give more control to those who are exposed to them. The results of these studies prove that emotional appeal in advertisements do have effect on both consumers and the society they live in. This information is vital in understanding the future of online marketing and commercialism in general. Marketing through social media is the most beneficial when appealing to others with emotion. That is not to say these advertisements don't cause lasting effects on the psyche. Most of the emotional ads create an intense response, one that is likely to stick with the viewer. Although we now know advertisements do utilize Maslow's hierarchy, we do not know just how much this affects our consumerist habits. This might be something to look for in the future. Overall, these studies answered my questions on the actual use of emotional appeal in advertisements, and that by catering to Maslow's hierarchy, people are more susceptible to purchasing something they did not previously think that they needed.